Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus pilot, and welcome to our second tutorial for the fly-by-wire Airbus A380. In this tutorial we are going to do the cockpit preparation, and the cockpit preparation follows a certain flow pattern which makes it quite a bit easier, in my opinion, to remember everything you need to do. So let's start with the basics. We've got the Airbus A380 cockpit over here, and the cockpit is divided into different sections. So let's go ahead and go over those. We start our flow pattern on the overhead panel, and we basically move from the bottom to the top, left to right. So we start on the vertical panel you can see over here, making sure that all the switches are in the position they're supposed to be. Then we continue with the panel in the middle, again, bottom to top, and then the same on the right hand side, bottom to top. From there we can move downwards, and we are going to continue on the main panel, where we are going to check the part in the middle at first, so the switching panel, then go over here, and then we can move further downwards onto the pedestal, where we also have three parts once again. So the pedestal starts over here with the thrust levers, then going down, and then we continue on the side, going down over here, and then we continue on the other side, going down over here. Now, once we are done with the scan flow pattern over here, last but not least, we can move up to the glare shield panel and set up our FCU. Now, that's the general scan flow that we are going to follow for the A380. Now let's go ahead and have a look at all the switches in particular. So we start on the overhead panel down here. The wipers are off, the emergency call button is guarded, and on the oxygen panel we turn on the crew supply button, make sure that the mask manual on button is guarded. Moving further up, we basically check that all the white lights are out and all the guards are down. Then we can continue on the middle panel, where we've got our external lights. Now for the external lights, the strobe light goes to auto, beacon off, nav light on, logo light off, and all the taxi and landing lights are off. Moving on to the right hand side of that panel, the seat belts can be turned on as soon as the refueling procedure is complete. The no mobile sign goes into the auto position, and the emergency exit lights can be armed. The annunciator lights are going to be set as needed. Basically you want to use the bright position during daylight and the dim position at night. You will notice that the dim position is very dim, and it might be hard to see anything at all on the switches, so be sure that this is in the bright position indeed. Moving further up, the anti-ice is off, engine start selector norm, and again all the white lights are out. And then we get to the air panel. Now over here we set the cockpit controls as needed. By default, fly-by-wire set this to about the 10 o'clock position, which is roughly 21 degrees. Now personally I'm a fan of some 24 degrees or so, which is pretty much the 12 o'clock position. The crossbleed selector is in auto, and the cabin temperature selector is on the purser select position, which is the 6 o'clock position. With the purser select position, the purser can just set the cabin temperatures manually, and there is no need for the pilots to intervene. Moving further up, we make sure that the drive disconnect switches are guarded, and observe the fault lights on the engine-driven generators. Those are normal and expected at this time in the pre-flight setup, since our engines are not running. Moving further up, we get to the fuel panel, and the fuel panel has to be set in a specific sequence. Now, first of all, keep the pumps off until the refueling is completed. Once refueling is complete, we can start turning them on, and we want to make sure that we turn the main pumps on before the standby pumps. So, main pump, then the standby. And then we can go below and turn on the other pumps of the associated tanks. Again, getting to tank number 2, first main, then standby, and then we turn on the other pumps on that side. And we do the same on the other side as well, like this. And we ensure that the trim tank feed selector is in the auto position. Moving further up, the hydraulic panel has all the switches guarded and off, and we have already done our fire test, so we don't need to do it again. Now moving further down, Wipers are off, engine manual start selectors are guarded, alternate mode as well. No white lights visible, and the cargo temperature selectors can be set as needed. For instance, if you are transporting some livestock, such as animals, you want to have them generally around the 15 to 20 degree position, but a specific temperature might be given to you on the load sheet. Moving further up then, on the third control panel, we want to make sure that the PA is up, so that our PAs are actually recorded on the cockpit voice recorder. Moving further up, again we extinguish any white lights that might have been illuminated, and getting to the aft overhead panel, we ensure that any of the reset switches is not pulled out, so those reset switches must all be pushed in, and on the maintenance panel there are no white lights illuminated. And this leads us down to the main panel. So on the main panel, we check the switching panel to make sure that all the switches are in the norm position. We are going to set our QNH on the standby altimeter, and the QNH is 1020 here at the moment, so we are going to set 1020 in here. The landing gear gravity extension switch is guarded, landing gear lever is down. We check the clock and click and hold the date button to verify that the correct time and date are selected, and it is the 2nd of November 2024 as I'm recording this. This is a rather important thing. If an incorrect date is selected, some of the Airbus's maintenance computers might go haywire, and this is what happened to the German foreign minister a while ago, where they couldn't retract the flaps because the aircraft thought it was out of check because an incorrect date was set. The mode itself is set to GPS, the anti-skid switch is on, and the auto brake switch is on the disarm position for the time being. Takeoff is not armed yet. Alright, moving down then, we ensure that our thrust levers are all in the idle position, the engine master switches are off, and that's already it. We don't need to do anything down here on the ECAN control panel at this time. So moving down to our radio then, we start by ensuring that the delivery frequency is set. However, since we are flying offline, we can just make any setting over here for the frequencies. Next up we go to the squawk page, which is the transponder page, and over here we can observe that our squawk is 2000 and the transponder itself is on standby. Next up we want to make sure that we listen to the correct radios, so we are going to ensure that VHF1 is selected, and we can also select the microphone to VHF1. We make sure that VHF2 is selected, and we make sure that the cabin interphone is selected. Now, you don't want to listen to the cabin or the PAs, so keep those off. Now, how do you make sure that the audio control panel is actually set to listen to something? Well, that's quite easy. If the white light illuminates, so if the button is popped out, then that is your sign that you are listening to this. Now let's go on, and we make sure that the ground spoilers are still in the retracted position, the park and brake as needed, and then we can move over to the right hand side. Again, over here the panel is set as needed, flaps are in the corresponding position, and the flight deck door lock is in the middle position. Alright, and that's everything we needed to do down here. Finally, we can go ahead and cross-check our FCU, but there is not all that much that we need to do up here just yet. We start on the outside panel, where we are going to select the correct altimeter scale. So we've got hectopascals selected here, and we have a QNH of 1020 at the moment. We can set up our nav display, and over here we basically want to make sure that we've got constraints selected. You can select any of the others as needed. For example, we could go for the airports over here. We want to make sure that we have our VORs selected. We want traffic and the zoom as needed. Moving on to our FCU itself, we turn the flight directors on, and we can set our initial climb altitude, but this is really going to be a subject for the actual FMS preparation, so I'm just going to set something over here. Last but not least, you want to make sure that the heading reference is in magnetic unless true is required, which would be denoted on the airport charts. How can you verify that? Well, check the top of your nav display. If it reads true up here, like now, then you want to be sure to press that button up here again so that you are in magnetic heading reference. Apart from that, make sure that no other switches are selected. Make sure that your colleague's panel is also selected correctly, and that's it. So, the last thing to do would be to move to the side over here, where we are going to check the oxygen masks. So we can open the panel down here, and we would run the oxygen check down here, which however is not simulated in the fly-by-wire A380 at the time of this recording. Well, and this concludes the cockpit preparation in the fly-by-wire Airbus A380. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you have learned something today. Be sure to leave your feedback in the comments below the video. Like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and I see you all again on the next one.